Hi, Julie Jones from SSB Performance, Smarter, Stronger, Better Mindset Training, here with this week's Mindset Made Simple Tip of the Week. And this week we're talking about expectations. This is the week of great expectations, or the season of expectations. Whether you celebrate Christmas or not, I know that expectations come with this time of year. For instance, our neighbors, their kids were thrilled that the Amazon truck kept coming the week or a couple weeks before Hanukkah. They were expecting gifts for 8 days. How exciting. They weren't disappointed, I'm sure of that. We now live with the expectations of the discussion that was had between my son and Santa a couple weeks ago, that we're going to get Hot Wheels Unleashed for the Nintendo Switch for Christmas. And he just added in a drone the other night. So not sure how that's going to fly. No pun intended. The Christmas story is all about expectation. People for generations were waiting for the Messiah, the great expectation that was to come one night in Bethlehem in a manger. How we look at expectations makes a difference on how we act and react. I am certain that finding the King of Kings laying in a manger messed with a lot of people's expectations, right? Had he been born in a castle with all the pomp and circumstances of a king, people probably would have looked at him a little bit differently. But we expect something, right? Expectations in Webster's or Oxford Dictionary says the belief that something will happen. That's what expectations are. There are all kinds of expectations. We have expectations of ourselves. Other people have expectations of us. And then there are those expectations out there that we just make up in our head. We think that people have expectations about us. The worst part is that we take those to a whole nother level at times. But expectations can help us in two ways. One way is a good way. The Pygmalion effect says that setting higher expectations, people will meet your expectations if you place higher expectations on them. You probably heard of the blue-eyed, brown-eyed experiment. And I put a link in this week's tip to that experiment. When the teacher told the blue-eyed kids that they were smarter, they did better on their tests. Conversely, when she went back and said, no, you're not smarter, that's actually the brown-eyed kids that are smarter, they did better. They were expected to do better, and they did better. This was really a racial bias kind of study, but it talks about expectations. So if we have high expectations, that's a good thing, right? We all want our coaches to have good, high expectations of us, our bosses, whatever it is. We want ourselves to have high expectations. But conversely, they can also cause pressure. If we're constantly running that theme in our head that goes so often that, what are people thinking of me? What are people saying about me? If we're doing that while we're trying to take a shot or hit a pitch or field a ball or take a shot at the goal, whatever it might be, we are not going to perform well. We are going to play small. And when we play small, we play tight. And when we play tight, we don't perform well. So expectations can turn into pressure. What do we need to do? Well, first of all, we need to take my dad's advice, Coach Jones Sr. He told me years ago, and I've gone back to this a million times. He said, hey, Joel, people are not thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. Why? How do I know that? He said, because they're too busy thinking about themselves. So we're worried about what she's thinking. She's worried about what I'm thinking. And we go back and forth. So I'm really not worried or even paying attention to her. I'm only worried about what she's thinking. What's she thinking? I don't know. What's she thinking? What's she thinking? It's like, who's on first? It's like a lot of craziness going on. You're not worried about her. You're worried about what she thinks of you. You're actually thinking about yourself. So the next time you get into a situation, you walk into a room and you start to think, I wonder what they're thinking of me. They're probably thinking, gosh, I wonder if my dress looks good. Or I wonder if my tie's straight. Or whatever it might be. I wonder if I'm fit enough to be here, or good enough to be here, or good enough to play here. That's what they're really thinking. They're not really worried about you because they're thinking about themselves. So that's one thing. Another thing we can do is we can write down all the expectations that are out there. The expectations we have of ourselves, the ones we know our coaches have of us, and then the ones we think people have of us. And then we need to go through the list and say, this is, find out. Do you really think this is what I need to do? Cross those out if they're not true. And all the other ones, some are realistic, some are not. The unrealistic ones, get rid of them. I had a kid, I want to hit 500. Well, guess what? You're not going to hit 500, right? Ted Williams hit 400, one guy in the whole history of Major League Baseball. you're not going to hit 500 at the Division I level. So kick it out. Right? I talk to basketball players all the time. I want to shoot this percentage. Well, that's not really realistic. Steph Curry doesn't shoot that percentage. So let's get down to brass tacks on what really is a good expectation. If the expectation cannot be set as a goal, then it is not a worthy expectation. So, how we look at the expectations that other people have of us, if we're constantly worried about what other people are thinking or what they're going to say, that is taking up the precious space in our brain that is needed to gather information, to perform the next goal, to perform the next task, whatever it is. Expectations and paying attention to them have us living in another moment, not in the present. The game is played in the present. Expectations exist in the future or in the past. And it brings all kinds of weight in at times. Sometimes we have the weight of the world on our shoulders as an athlete. Our athletes feel that way. I've got to make this shot. Or what's she going to think? Every time we think what she or he going to think, we are not thinking about what it is that we need to be doing right now. So I challenge you in this time of great expectations to have your athletes write out all the things they think people expect of them. And then go back and sort of filter them. What's real? What's not real? What can be turned into a goal? And then what do I need to do to reach this goal? So it's not just an expectation, it's something I'm working toward. Expectations are important. There is no question about it. How we look at them is our choice. Man is not bothered by what's to come. He's bothered by how he looks at it. Right? A Greek philosopher said that years ago. I add, we are not bothered by expectations. We're bothered by what we think of them. And half of them probably aren't even real. And they're not thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. So as you go into this Christmas season, take a deep breath. Think about the expectations that are real and try to meet them or exceed them, whatever it is. But have your athletes write them down. Have them think about who's really thinking about what. And maybe that'll diffuse some of the pressure and allow them to play a little more free and better. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Until next week, have an outstanding week with your family and friends.